How did I get here? That's what I found myself thinking a few months ago. I had just finished creating a series of mindfulness videos that I was really proud of. I had only just decided to start creating content the month before, but I wasn't exactly sure what, or even how. I had used ChatGPT to get some ideas, and together we came up with something that seemed solid. Chat assured me that mindfulness content was a great fit for me, would appeal to a wide audience, and would earn me lots of subscribers quickly, so I gave it a shot. The end result was something amateur but promising. Despite my initial worries and hesitations, I had created something I didn't think was possible a month ago, and now that I had a month of experience under my belt, it felt like something I could sustain. Or so I thought. The problem was, I felt like an imposter and a hypocrite. At a time where people I trust and respect were calling for a boycott of ChatGPT, here I was, relying on it. And what's worse, the content I was creating didn't even feel like me. I was repeating words written by an AI bot while doing my best impression of my favorite mindfulness creators. And as much as I appreciate and respect them for what they do, mindfulness just isn't something I have that same passion for. And as a result, creating this type of content was beginning to feel like a slog rather than something I enjoyed. It was time for a change. I had seen influencers and social media coaches say that the advice I'd gotten from ChatGPT was wrong, and that rather than trying to make content that will appeal to as many people as possible, the best thing you can do is create content that you enjoy, and in time, your community will find you. And since I wanted to create something authentic, I figured I'd start listening to humans. But that left me with a new problem. What does this authentic content look like? To figure that out, I started with self reflection. What am I good at? What am I passionate about? What do I do so easily and naturally that it flows out of me without having to think about it? What could I create that I would never get bored of? Next, I thought about my platform. What was working and what wasn't? What kind of content would I feel good about creating? Who am I creating it for? And what's something only I could offer them? I spent an entire day mulling over these questions, but didn't land anywhere concrete. I had a fuzzy idea, but I wasn't feeling confident about it. I talked about this with my therapist, but what had been holding me back was my fear that no one would want to hear what I had to say. She assured me that my experiences and perspectives were interesting and relatable, which was nice to hear. But she's my therapist, so of course she'd say that. The next day, I shared my concerns with my work bestie. She told me I was overthinking it and showed me a few creators she liked. She assured me that I didn't need to be perfect or polished, and that just being myself was enough. I knew she was right. I do tend to overthink about how I'm perceived, to the point where if I can't do something perfectly, I don't even try. But I also knew that the content she suggested wasn't exactly what I wanted to make, so I was still unsure. Last, I talked to my sister. She's one of the few people who I feel has always understood me. I mean, she's literally known me for her entire life. Our conversations flow very naturally and tend to span hours. This time was no different. When I talked to her about wanting to change up my content, she was excited for me. She reminded me that writing is one of my strengths, though admittedly it's a muscle I haven't exercised in years. This story for another day. I remarked to her that I wanted to use my words to create a space that felt as comfortable as our conversations. A relaxed space where you can let down your walls and process whatever you're feeling. I left that conversation feeling much stronger. At last, I had a concrete idea of what I wanted to create. But as I'd come to realize, the process of starting over often feels like one step forward, two steps back. Finding the solution to that problem led me to uncover a deeper one. The more I understood what I wanted to create, the more clearly I could see the gap between who I was and who I would need to be in order to create it. Taking on this new type of project meant learning a new set of skills, from more advanced video editing tools to how to manage the fear that comes with putting your personal thoughts on the internet for people to judge. It was that second one that intimidated me the most. I found myself flashing back to every time I'd been talked down to or talked over, professors who didn't get my writing, the ex whose friends harassed me on Tumblr, bosses who called me too sensitive for pointing out toxic behaviors in the workplace, and the countless people who have talked over my soft voice, signaling that my words don't matter, that I don't matter. For a long time, I listened to them. I stopped writing. I deleted my Tumblr diary. I didn't report being sexually assaulted at work. I stopped speaking up for myself. I was content to just be in the background, only speaking when someone asked me to. And even then, I'd respond with the answer I knew they wanted, not the truth. The result of these experiences and so many more was that I believed there was something wrong with me. Maybe my writing really was bad. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I deserved the abuse I received from men. Maybe that's the best I could hope for. Or maybe that's just what I wanted to believe, because it was easier. When bad things happen to us, we often try to find some sort of meaning in it. If we can understand why something happened, it can help soften the blow. It might even help us prevent it from happening again. Believing I was the problem meant that I had control over the situation. If it was me, I could change. I could work harder, faster, be the best version of me. And maybe then things would be better. Maybe then I'd earn their approval. Maybe then I'd deserve to be treated well. And in some ways, this belief worked. As a people-pleasing, overachieving perfectionist, I was very successful in school and in my career, but those achievements never made me happy. And I saw my lack of happiness as further evidence that something was wrong with me, and I needed to work harder to fix it. But I couldn't. I was stuck in a thought trap. Since I believed something was wrong with me, I couldn't share how I was feeling or ask others for help out of fear that they'd judge me. I avoided any situations where I'd be challenged or embarrassed, even though those are the exact situations that allow us to grow. Instead, I kept on repeating old patterns that didn't work, hoping that one day something would change. But it was me that needed to change. It wasn't easy. If I wasn't the problem, then what was? What was the reason people felt comfortable ignoring, insulting, and violating me? Was it because I'm black or a woman? I can't change those things. And it's infuriating that something so trivial could mean I'd have to deal with people treating me this way for the rest of my life. If I had never been the problem, that meant I'd been holding myself back when I didn't need to. I'd been avoiding people and situations that might have made me really happy and staying in situations where I was miserable because that felt safer than taking a risk. It was embarrassing, especially as someone who takes a lot of pride in being intelligent, to realize that the impossible situation I was trapped in was one I'd created with my own thinking. All along, I thought I was the problem, when in reality, it was by thinking that I was the problem that I actually became the problem. I'd let fear run my life. I put others' opinions of me above my own. And despite what I'd initially believed, it didn't make me happier or safer. Even when I did everything perfectly, I still had to face people who were condescending, dismissive, and outright abusive. All I'd done by thinking this way was make myself anxious and exhausted. And I don't want that anymore. So here I am, doing things differently, or trying to anyway. I still have my fears, doubts, and insecurities. I'm not fully healed from any of these experiences, but I'm trying to let them control me less. Because it's time I wrote my own story instead of letting anyone else write it for me. It's time I let myself grow. That's all I have for you today. The script was kind of messy, but trying to perfect it was causing me to procrastinate, so I'm just ending it here. If any of this spoke to you, I invite you to subscribe and follow along on my journey. I have a couple more polished scripts in the works, so look forward to those. In the meantime, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.